What's good, folks? How y'all doing tonight? You good? It's your man Donald King. Normally, my energy level is pretty high, but today I am fatigued. I didn't know what I was going to talk about tonight prior to, I guess, a few seconds before starting this podcast. So, as always, I'm shooting from the hip. This is not rehearsed. Um, today I was sort of reflecting on what it means to be disciplined. You see, for the last 3 days, my brother Adrian and I, we've been clearing out the house of a hoarder. Oh my God. It's like, I'd say a minimum of 60 square yards of refuse piled into a single space. Two people herked it out, right? We got our He-Man on. We're getting it. We're going for it. And I tell you, man, it's like I was feeling it. I was tired. I was really tired. For the last 3 days, I've gone back to my vegan diet, and for the last 3 days, the main things that I've subsisted on through these arduous moves with like really soaked furniture and stuff like that. I've had an apple, banana, oatmeal, and almond milk smoothie and water. I don't even know how many calories I burned moving. And don't get it wrong, because I do my fair share. I always try to do more than I'm supposed to, because I never want anyone to feel a deficit as a result of my lack of participation or lack of giving. Which brings me to the point of tonight's podcast. What is mental discipline? The reason why I make it a point to be excellent in what I do is because I'm a disciplined individual. What does discipline mean? Right? Discipline is the inner sense of accountability. You see, when I make my mind up to do something, I make an agreement. I make a promise with myself that I'm going to do my very best to get it done. And as a result of striving to be as honest as I possibly can, I don't like breaking promises to myself. My accountability to myself is what makes me see things through to completion. It makes me honor agreements when no one is watching me. It makes me choose to do what is correct and appropriate, even with no one standing beside me and with no one looking over my shoulder. Mentally disciplined. You know, a lot of parents, they try to discipline their children. Most parents end up punishing their children, and I'll get into the difference between punishment and discipline, but to discipline a child is, in essence, to instill them with an inner sense of accountability. That's the reason why you punish kids if they do something bad. Or not. That's why most people should punish kids, and we got to make a distinction between punishment and what are we talking about? Yeah, consequence. I'm that tired. Yeah, we have to make a distinction between punishment and consequence, but the reason why most parents provide guidelines to children and then provide negative consequences for children whenever if children step outside the guidelines that were provided is because what they're trying to do is instill children with an inner sense of accountability. I'm very fortunate in that, through the way that I was raised and my parents' upbringing and whatnot, I was instilled with an inner sense of accountability. I know that when I walk into a situation, there is a certain there's a certain equilibrium factor within any situation or circumstance you walk into, and it is my job to make sure that I help things remain in balance as best I can, or leave without creating a deficit. It's that simple. Consequence, consequence. It gives you parameters to stay within, so as not to incur penalty. When you're disciplined, not only are you mindful of the consequences, but you're mindful of that equilibrium state I was just talking about. You're mindful of the ebb and flow of interactions of any situation you enter into, and you're cognizant of the people involved. You're cognizant in general. You do what you can to not create imbalance. This is how I'm disciplined. When I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I do my very best to do it. You know why? Because I don't want to create an imbalance between us. I don't want to create a perceptual rift. Am I afraid of the people who I try to keep my word to? No. No. Am I worried about getting comfortable and complacent with not keeping my word to myself? Absolutely. If you can't keep your word to yourself, how can you ever trust your own mind? If you can't rely on you to keep your word to you, how can you trust your own mind? If you can't trust your own mind, who can you trust? Yeah, so we talk about the difference between discipline and punishment. And I'll say it like this. Discipline, again, it has to do with the inner sense of accountability. And, consequences are parameters. They're guidelines that you experience, or let's say they're out of bounds. They're penalties you incur when you step out of bounds for proper behavior within a given context. Okay? The difference between consequence and punishment, or the difference between mental discipline, brother, absurd, I'm going to get to it in just one second. The difference between discipline and punishment is this. Discipline has to do with, again, helping people gain awareness for their own sense of accountability, right? Consequences let you know how to stay in bounds of prescribed behaviors or ways for interacting with others, so that you are and or can remain disciplined. Punishment, on the other hand, punishment is what you call it when someone uses or attempts to use consequences as a weapon against others. Punishment is basically someone using rules as an excuse to release their anger and frustrations into people. So instead of saying, here, I'm going to give you these guidelines. If you step outside these guidelines, these will be the consequences. They're like, oh, you stepped outside the guidelines. That means I get to hit you. It means I get to hurt you. That means I get to humiliate you or take some measure of freedom away from you. When I get to punish you, I get to use you as my physical and emotional punching bag. I get to take my shit out on you. That's what punishment is. It's taking your shit out on someone, or someone taking their anger, frustration, or contempt out on another individual to the tune of satisfying their internal sense of justice. Brother, absurd. Let me see. From the definitions you provided, it seems impossible, at least to me, impossible to actually discipline another. Let me see. Man, there I go forgetting to say hi. Pardon me. What's up, brother Donald? Brother, I'm sorry the word, man. I love you, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in, man. You know what? And I will say it like this. With respect to your first question, and I'll get to the second one of that, or the first statement. I think it is possible to discipline people because parents are supposed to discipline their children. They're supposed to instill the children with a sense of accountability that ultimately transfers from the parent to the child. It's like, hey, it's kind of like, and again, it also, there's some layers in there, and I'm gonna probably break those down in a second. But it's like when you say you have to do this and you have to do this to take care of yourself. So for instance, let's say father teaches his child how to brush your teeth. You have to take care of brushing your teeth. If you don't take care of brushing your teeth are going to fall out. If you don't brush your teeth are going to fall out. Right? And then, after a while, the kid has to take on the responsibility of brushing their teeth so their teeth don't fall out. It's not always, the parent isn't always going to be there. They'll be like, hey, you better brush your teeth. When you discipline your child, you give them guidelines. You help raise them. You help see them to autonomy. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you do this, or I'm going to give you a consequence. And if you're a good parent, then you explain the consequence and what it's ultimately designed to do in the way of helping the child gain a sense of accountability. And the child ultimately learns how to fend for themselves because they've been guided to autonomy by a G. You know what I'm saying? But, a lot of people, especially people who are of the slave mind, the cowardly ideologues, they're not really interested in disciplining children or disciplining other people. They confuse discipline with punishment. They want something to hurt for their amusement and satisfaction. I'm going to beat you because I'm angry. Or I want to release my anger and frustration into something so I can feel better, and you gave me an opportunity to do it. You ever see those parents online posting videos about when they whip their children? It wasn't a consequence. It wasn't a consequence, it was punishment. It was them trying to protect their identity and show people how much of a real parent they are by humiliating and brutalizing their children to the tune of making themselves feel better. It's cowardly. Cowardly ideologues, aggressive betas, they love punishing people and love punishing things. They love seeing things punished. They love seeing things humiliated and injured, subdued and destroyed. They have all this rage and animus pent up inside of them, and what they want to do is make something suffer for their amusement and satisfaction. So they love seeing things punished. They love seeing people punished. Look at racists in this country, right? Racists in this country, they when a cop kills, let's say, an unarmed black person, you got a racist like, yeah, they deserved it. What are they really saying when they defend some cowardly ideologue with a badge and a belief of authority, which reality will rectify very, very soon and with unimaginable consequences? When they have this belief of superiority, they go around punishing people and or releasing their anger and frustration into people to the tune of creating systemic imbalances and imbalances within reality. So a person is like, hey, I don't have anything in my hand. Freeze, don't move. Bang, 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 bang. Why did you shoot me? Well, you should have followed orders. That's not a consequence. That's somebody trying to punish another individual and or release their anger and frustration into them. Lynching people. Lynch mobs. Mass writers, the whole shit. It's people trying to punish things, trying to use whatever rule gives them the right and the freedom to unilaterally aggress against others towards releasing their anger and frustration into them. And I don't want to deviate too far from the main point of this thread, and you guys have to forgive me. Hopefully I'm dialed in well enough because, again, my fatigue level is off the charts, and I still have things to do before I'm done. I still have to wash clothes. I have two baking orders that I have to have finished by tomorrow, and all of this stuff has to be done before I go to bed tonight so I can get back here and finish working on this hoarder's house. How do I do it? I'm mentally disciplined. You see, I don't stop when I get tired. I don't stop when I'm bored. I don't stop when I'm hurting. I don't stop when I lose interest. I don't stop when something new comes along to distract me. I see shit through to completion. I stop when I'm done. That's mental discipline. You stop when you're done, and not a second before, unless something astronomical comes along and makes it impossible for you to stop. You don't stop until you're done. Instilled in me by Bruce King, my father, my adoptive father. I don't have many heroes in this world. That man is one of the few. Didn't let us be weak. I had some aggressive beta tendencies, and he used to call me on them. He didn't let me take the easy way out. And now that I'm older, now that I'm a man, I don't look for the easy way out. My focus is being a well-rounded individual, period. Being the very best person that I can be to as many people as I can be. Because it is my inner agreement. Discipline is, again, it is your inner sense of accountability. I'm accountable to myself and to others. I'm accountable to reality. I'm accountable to truth. I'm accountable to honesty and compassion. I'm accountable to effort. I'm accountable to all these things, and not in a way that I'm imprisoned by them or in burdens to them. I'm not indentured to them. They're how I maintain my frame of reference. They're how I remain an excellent person, by being accountable. By not selling myself short, by not letting myself off the hook when or if I don't feel like doing something. Or conversely, granting myself license to do something that's fucking reckless just because the thrill. Hey, man, you violating agreements, dog? I mean, like, shit, you still gonna have to look in the mirror. You still gonna see me. It doesn't matter if you were to lie to someone or what you get away with. At the end of the day, you have to face me. And I'm going to show you the reality of you, bruh. Yeah. Honesty, accountability, mental discipline, and how it differentiates from punishment. Aggressive betas love punishing things. Last night I was hanging out with my brother Mike Jones, and we're talking about this dude Kevin Samuels. Mike is aggressive. He's really angry because, I'm telling him in no unspecific terms that Kevin Samuels is an aggressive beta. He's not a true alpha. My brother Mike, he's a very passionate guy. He's arguing his feelings and beliefs about why Kevin Samuels holds value. why he's saying the same thing as me. First of all, nobody's ever saying the same thing I'm saying. I don't care how close you think you come, you're never going to say the same thing that I say, ever. It's impossible. What I'm saying is it's irreducible. So you have to understand the entire framework from universal math all the way down to structural building block logic, and how all of these principles that I share in these podcasts are actually based in maths. And that those maths necessarily tie to systems and principles of natural organization. I'm unreplicable in that way. So no one is ever saying exactly what I'm saying. Anybody who says, hey, he's saying exactly what you're saying, only demonstrates that they don't know what I'm saying and they don't know what the other person is saying, because they're not one and the same. Ever. But the point that I'm making by even mentioning this is my brother Mike, he was going off and he was in his feelings. You said Kevin Samuels aggressive beta, and I listen to this man, I like him and all these other things. The reason why I mentioned this is because aggressive betas love seeing people punished. Kevin Samuels, people call into his show and then he chastises them. He punishes them for the amusement of the aggressive betas in the audience. Everybody's like, oh, he tells it like it is. And they're not even paying attention to the fact that this is the exact same thing that everybody said about Trump when he was in office. Oh, he tells it like it is. All the legions of aggressive betas rolling behind this guy. Same with Dr. Umar, same with Ben Shapiro, same with Jordan Peterson. These men appeal to aggressive betas. What they do is they blame and punish groups. Tell people that, hey, you're the good guy and they're the bad guy. They speak directly to ideologues. And the reason why I even mentioned Kevin Samuels is because at the end of the day, this dude, he punishes people who call into his show. And what I was trying to explain to Mike was simply this. People tune into him because he humiliates people. He humiliates them. Aggressive betas love watching people who they feel they're morally superior to be humiliated. It's a very unremarkable way to approach interactions with others. Now, people come to me, and this is a point that I was making regarding Kevin Samuels and myself. People come to me with their aggression all the time. You know, I don't lead with aggression. I always give people 3-4 chances to tighten up. They come to me with their aggression, and after a while, there's a consequence. You're not going to be rude to me. You're not going to be dismissive to me. You're not going to release your anger and frustration into me because you didn't learn how to manage your emotions. I don't go to people with my contempt. I don't invite them to me so that I can be dismissive to them. But if they get out of hand and they persist in being out of hand, then, you know, we have our go at it. We have our go. And you know why that's so relevant? It's simply this. Undisciplined people come to me, mentally and emotionally undisciplined people come to me, trying to release their anger and frustration into me because they haven't taken time to learn how to process their thoughts and process their feelings. And the only thing they want to do is unleash and unload on everyone who they feel isn't equipped to fight them back on fair terms. That's the cowardly ideologue for you. A mentally undisciplined person, an emotionally undisciplined person who doesn't have the wherewithal to contain their feelings long enough to observe things properly, analyze them, and respond in proper context. You see, I'm mentally disciplined. You know why I'm mentally disciplined? Because I practice disciplining my mind. I practice keeping myself accountable. People who do nothing to keep themselves accountable and who instead love to blame others for their shortcomings and blame others for all the ways in which they are not benefiting in life the way that they think that they should. The ones who self-glorify, the narcissists, the ones who only know how to compete and aggress and self-idealize, they're not mentally disciplined in the least. They see someone who's mentally disciplined. They see what they want from the person who's mentally disciplined. And the only thing that they want to do is compete because, hey, if I can prove that I'm better than them, then it means I'm mentally disciplined. No, the fuck it doesn't. Mental discipline is something you have to practice. You have to practice. Wow. Brother Absurd, I think you're the only one on the podcast tonight, brother. Assuming you're still there. But, yeah, man. That's what it boils down to. Hopefully I'm pushing through the fog as best I can. I'm out of it, guys. I mean, like, dude, I'm exhausted. I barely even slept last night. I barely slept. Sister Candace in the house. What's good, mama? Hey. How you doing? Everything is practiced. Everything is practice. Oh my God, I'm so fatigued. Sometimes discipline entails knowing when to listen to other things. I kind of want to listen to my body right now and just crash, but there are things that need to be done. There are people who I make commitments to who I don't back out of. Or which I don't back out of. Look at me. I'm so off my kilter right now. But with nothing in me, with everything sapped away from me, with me barely being able to keep my eyes open, I'm able to remain in flow state. There was a meme I posted the other day where it said flow state is the combination, or it's the overlap of discipline and surrender. I'm thoroughly disciplined. I take on every challenge because my mind is disciplined enough to handle it and rise to the occasion. I shoot these podcasts in flow state because it's like, you know what? I surrender to avatar perspective, but also I've spent so much time disciplining my mind that even when I'm out of it, I'm still in it. I'm still on it. Sister Candace was out there and we, hey, Miss Candace, how you doing? Sister Candace was out there and we shot a podcast on her channel. And I was drunk. And even in being drunk, which I'm so tired right now, I almost feel like I'm drunk. Even in being drunk, I keep my shit about me. My mind is that disciplined. And I'm not even bragging about that. The point of it is simply this. I practice discipline. I practice disciplining myself, but more importantly, I just lost my thought. I practice disciplining my mind. I practice disciplining myself so that it's kind of like, what was that show, Naruto? Rock Lee, he had done so many exercises. He had trained himself in his I almost said Jeet Kune Do, since it's based on Bruce Lee. But no, in his taijutsu, I think that's what it was. He had trained so diligently that even when he was out on his feet, he's still up and ready to go. Right now, I'm out on my feet. And this is the level of lucidity I can present to you because I've disciplined my mind. All of these battles you've seen me go through, all these opportunities I've taken to explain myself and what I see, all of this work I put into becoming how I am today, this is the payoff. This is what discipline gets you. So you can enter flow state because you can surrender to your fatigue, or you can surrender to alcohol, or you can surrender to the avatar perspective or whatever, because it's like, even when you're out of it, you're in it. Even when you're out of it, you're in it. I'm wondering how this podcast is going, honestly, because it's like right now I feel like I'm sucking. But I mean, the main bullet points that I want to drive home. Main bullet points that I want to drive home are again what mental discipline is, and then again what discipline in itself is, and how it differentiates from punishment, right? And again, discipline is the inner sense of accountability. The inner sense of accountability, it can be, instilled in you through discipline by your parents, or discipline coming from your respective formative environments, or possibly even like discipline in the form of reprimanding at work or something like that. It's how you learn how to stay in bounds so as not to receive consequences. Consequences are mechanical in nature. When you receive a consequence is it's very impersonal. It doesn't say, "Hey, I'm going to make this thing suffer for my amusement and satisfaction." It says, "No, these are the rules of the system. You broke the rules of the system. This is the penalty for breaking the rules of the system in this particular way." And an analogy I like to use is someone dancing on a rooftop. They're dancing on the rooftop, and then they get up on the ledge. And then as they're dancing with their eyes closed, they tip over the edge and they plummet to the ground and crash and die. You can't say, "Oh, the ground punished them," or "Oh, the building punished them," or "God punished them." No, that's not true. They would have fallen to the ground as a result of gravity. It would have been a natural consequence for doing something stupid within a fixed system. Consequences always mechanical. So even when parents are, disciplining their children, and they provide consequences for going outside the line towards helping the children gain a sense of autonomy and or cognizance for how they impact on the world at large, and helping children gain cognizance for consequence. When a parent, gives their child consequences. "Hey, dude, if you don't do this particular thing over here, you're grounded. I'm dead serious with you. I'm not playing with you." It's very different than punishing the kid. Punishing the kid is, "Oh, I'm disappointed in you. I feel bad, so you know what? You go to your room until I say so." And that's meant to make the parent feel good. It's not giving them a hard consequence, because consequences are always impersonal. If you do something which incurs the consequence in any realm of contemplation, consequences will always be about what happens when you do something, not "I'm going to make you hurt so I can feel better within me." You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, what a day, what a day. Ugh. I feel like I'm rehashing at this point. Anywho, what y'all up to? Y'all got anything on your mind? Anybody? Anybody feeling anything? Oh man. I'm impressed. We actually got that house cleared today. Still gotta go back and do a little bit of extra, a few extra touch-ups. But wow. That's a lot of shit. I was talking the other day about, I was talking about this on Monday. The hoarder house that I'm in right now, it's a perfect representation of the identity wherein these people collect all these little effects that they seek to define themselves by, that they simply don't want to part with, and then all of a sudden they become this great big paradox. This amalgamation of effects that are paradoxical and which don't serve any purpose, and they cling to these effects and these artifacts that don't serve any purpose anymore and that are antiquated. And you remember those Star Wars collectible cups you get from McDonald's? They used to say, "Oh, this is a collector's set." And they would give you like soda in the very thing they told you was a collectible, thereby negating its value because it's no longer in mint condition. Like, but yeah, these people, they collected things that they thought would have value one day, or thought that they would gift to other people one day, or thought that they would fix one day and then enjoy. And before you know it, all this shit piled up, and it looked like what Alzheimer's looks like if you could see it as a mental landscape. It's insane. Infrastructure bad. Just everything fell to shit because someone was like, yo, I can't bear to part with it. And see, how it factors into what I'm talking about is this. These people and the state and condition they probably passed away in, it wasn't a punishment for collecting all those things. It was a consequence. It was a consequence. Nobody stood over them and said, take all of this shit inside your space so I can feel better about me. No. It was a consequence of them not living conscientiously. They didn't mind the system of reality. They lived in their inner story. They lived in their cocoon. And before they knew it, they lost sight of the world around them because they never got out of their systems of intentions. I'm going to give this to Mary Lou. I'm going to fix this and use this. Maybe I'll sell it. Before they knew it, these days that they agreed with themselves they were going to do these things on, these days became weeks, and then months, and then years. Let me see. Brother Absurd says, I took Aaron's training seriously. Very nice. Oh man, you have such a pretty dog, man. I'm very happy that she brings you some measure of joy, and that you are training her as best you can. Very nice. Very nice. So, right now we're at about 40 minutes. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping up. I thank y'all who chimed in today, and hopefully my conveyance wasn't too lackluster. I never know until I watch these things back, and when I tell you that I'm out of my mind right now, I'm being dead serious. I'm barely aware of what I'm doing right now. So, yeah. And I still got to muster up energy to get other stuff done, because I'm accountable to myself. When I'm accountable to myself, I can't break agreements that I make with others. If you say you're going to do something, do it. In order to keep your sanity, in order to keep your frame of reference, in order to keep your emotional gait very healthy, in order to not always be in a defensive mode and worried that others are judging you or looking to punish you, just be a person of integrity. Be accountable. Start by being accountable to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, do that shit. Don't stop just because it gets boring or old or you get uncertain or insecure. Work that shit out, man. Get her done. Very nice. So, Candace writes in, let me see. Let me see. Okay, Brother Absurd, I had to go back to your point. Yo, yesterday, on Monday, you had made a comment in response to a question that I asked you, and it didn't show up until the podcast was over. So I definitely want to make sure I get to what you're talking about, Brother Absurd. But you said I took Erin's training seriously yesterday in the park, calling her name, saying the command while clapping and whistling. She actually adjusted her running pace to my cadence. It was actually incredible. Awesome, man. Hopefully that was in theme with how I was explaining things to you, but yeah, it's like, when you get into giving the dog commands, at first they're not going to understand English because obviously dogs don't speak English. So when you sort of combine it with other effects to get their attention, then after a while, once you start removing those effects, then and you just use the word commands, then ultimately they'll develop some sort of cognizance for and or conscientiousness of what it is that you mean, and that's how you communicate with them, at least according to how I understand it. Sister Candace writes, I love the word conscientious. One of my next podcast topics. Excellent. I love conscientiousness myself. It is it's a lifesaver. When you are dialed into the world around you and you're aware of what's passing around you and what's passing through you and what you're putting out, then it gives you a level of connection to reality that I think most people simply don't experience. It gives you a level of I would say metacognizance, but yeah, conscientiousness. How do I impact onto the system around me? Conscientious. Hey, if I'm tiptoeing through this field of lilies, did I bend a blade of grass? Conscientiousness. Hey, you know what? I'm alert. I'm aware. What is happening here? How do I exist in relation to the context around me? And how do I positively impact upon it if that's what I'm trying to do? Or how do I avoid negatively impacting upon it, which is what I don't want to do, unless it's a corrupt system, in which case you probably do. But still, yeah, I love conscientiousness too. It's one of my favorite words. One of my favorite words. Let me see. Sister Candace comes back in. Some studies have reported that conscientiousness is a factor that improves the quality of life by a great measure. And yeah, it does. It does. It does. When you are mindful, and that's what I call conscientiousness. It's mindfulness. When you're mindful about not just how you experience life and how you impact upon others, but when you're mindful of the experiences of others in the world around you, and you sort of get in the flow of life, when you get in the flow of life, then it's like, yeah, your life is always going to be more enriched. And it goes back to a point I was talking to Brother Adrian about earlier today. These people whose house we're clearing, they lived an unexamined life. If that makes sense, they lived an unexamined life. And because they lived this unexamined life, all this shit just built up around them while they were trying to keep up with the Joneses and getting all this cutlery and cookware for parties that never happened. For parties that never happened in a space that was unusable. All these glasses. So many mason jars. So many mason jars. For what? They let their social actors and self-idealizing make all of these decisions for them. They let self-idealizing and their pride and their desire to present themselves to others as characters of interest, they let that shit do all the thinking for them. They lived an unexamined life. When you're conscientious, you live an examined life. Of course you're happier. Of course you're happier. Yo! Guys, you already know what it is. I'm obviously shooting this on Facebook Live, Barely Conscious. You can also follow me on Medium. You can check me out on Instagram and also on YouTube. All the information is right there. You can just copy and paste it. If you like what I do and you ever want to give some support, you can always join the Patreon family. I am Avatar Cycle 13. That's Avatar Cycle XIII on Patreon. And then also, if you get any sort of appreciation or love from your boy on these podcasts, you can always be like, yo, here's the collection plate, bro. And you can toss me a little something via Cash App. All proceeds go to building this up to a larger platform. Again, I want to reach as many people as I can before I'm out of this body. But, yeah, man. Yeah, First of all, thank you, Absurd and Candace, for chiming in tonight. I appreciate you both. You know, I might have to circle back to this one just depending on how well I did in shooting it. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that humans get confused at a conceptual level and then perpetuate without understanding what they're doing, right? And what every person is trying to, or hopefully wants to do, when it comes to rearing children, is create a disciplined human being, someone who has an inner sense of accountability. But more often than not, people end up punishing kids and only emotionally scarring them because they use the kids as physical and emotional punching bags to release their anger and frustrations into, and they perpetuate the problem. This is the reason why prisons are full of kids who were beaten. So no amount of beating kids is ever going to, imbue them with an inner sense of accountability. No amount of beating a kid is going to make them disciplined. If it's not paired with instruction, you shouldn't beat kids to begin with, but if it's not paired with instruction, if it's not paired with explanation, then the only thing you're doing is scarring an individual and perpetuating the cycle, because more than likely they're going to go and scar someone else. Anywho, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Thank you for tuning in. And hopefully this didn't turn out too bad. But if it did, it's all good, because it's like I rebound from these pretty quickly. Anywho, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. It's your man. I'm out. Oh, wait. Before I go, oh, okay, yeah, no. All right, I already covered that. Okay, I just made sure that I got everybody whose comment showed up so far. So yeah, I got the last comment from Candace. All right, so I'm out. All right, y'all have a good night. All right, peace.